It is lovely to have you here. It's lovely to finally have a conversation, especially when I heard your podcast topic and I went, we need to connect. Similar heart.
For sure. I've been catching up on some of your recent episodes, and I'm like, yes, all of these things.
Yes, exactly. Tell me a little bit about where you are in the world, who you're homeschooling, what brought you to homeschooling.
Yeah. So I am. I'm in the States. I'm in the Midwest. So we're up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's actually usually a tender right now, but for some reason we're in some kind of a sunny heat wave. So we actually have all the windows open right now, and by heat wave, 40 degrees. So
Welcome. That's also us in Western Canada. Yeah.
yes. And I have a 13 and a 10-year-old. We have been homeschooling since the start. I consider myself an accidental. Growing up, I went to public school, but I had friends that were homeschooled, and we never thought that we would homeschool. And all three of us that are still close actually wound up homeschooling. And it came about, and I think that this might be true for other people that are homeschooling too, is that when my kids were young, I just started to adopt different techniques. I have a degree in psychology, so I was always very much into learning and education and like how the mind works and being able to help and support that. And as I started like looking into education options around where we were and just noticing my oldest, especially at the time, he was just so active and he was constantly in motion. And the idea of him being able to sit in kindergarten and just be able to do that, it did not seem like that was going to work for him. And so we just took it year by year. So I was like, okay, you know what? We'll try homeschooling. Like I have some friends that are doing it. We'll just see. Um, and it just evolved because I went into this thinking it was going to be super overwhelming. I had to have the whole thing mapped
Mm.
out. Once I made the decision, like I was locked in, was the thought that was going around at that time or the one that I had internalized. And so being able to come at it from that ability to adapt and change and be flexible and work
Yeah.
with them and also with me, right? So we have a standing agreement that if it is ever not working for either of us, that we'll pivot. But so many years in, and it's still going strong. So
Lovely. Oh, so good. So, what was the biggest source of your pressure or overwhelm in your homeschool journey? You said you anticipated it, so you planned it all out. When did you really start feeling it? When did you recognize it?
yeah, I think that I tend to dive all in, right? I
Me too.
think that the biggest sense of pressure was just my expectations on what I wanted from myself. I wanted to make sure that I was meeting the needs
Yeah.
and not um, making them feel like they were in any kind of detriment because of my decision to homeschool. And I think that a lot of moms feel this pressure, right? Is we don't want to let our kids down. Um, and when I started to realize is that it didn't matter what the curriculum was that I was using or not using. We did unschooling for a long time. It didn't matter what that was. It didn't matter what the choices I was making. It didn't matter if my schooling or my homeschooling looked different than the ones of the people that I was around. What mattered was that I was meeting my kids exactly where they were.
Amen, sister. Right there.
Yeah,
Who is the kid right in front of you?
right.
That's your goal.
And just targeting in on that and letting everything else go. And I think that we all can get into that sense of, oh, where are my kids? Are they keeping up with? But then looking back on it and realizing like there's no goal for them to be keeping up with.
Mm.
And as long as they're continuing to grow and learn and feeling confident and
Yeah.
curious and wanting to learn are
Mhm.
my goals for homeschooling. So as long as I stick with that and I'm really clear on what my goals are, I want them to come out and be competent, responsible people that actually are happy and enjoy their lives. And as long as I can meet that and continue to foster those attributes in them, then that's our standard.
Beautiful. So I guess I have two questions based on that. One is when you did notice the overwhelm or that your expectations were out of reach or not realistic, how did you know and what was the actual physical or emotional experience of that? And then the other one is how do you know when you are meeting the child in front of you?
Yeah. These are such great questions. And honestly, as someone who has grown up and put emotions aside, I'm not
Yeah.
always in touch with my feelings.
So
So
welcome
it
to our
wasn't, it was
generation and Every
Yeah,
generation before Gen Z. Yeah.
exactly. So it wouldn't be that I would necessarily sense the feelings or the emotions, but I would notice it in the behaviors that I was exhibiting. I would notice it in the tension in the house when there
Right.
started to be that tension. I would notice it when I would start to feel resentful, right? When
Yeah.
I would just start to feel like I was pushing or I was trying to put out so much out there and I wasn't getting appreciated
Yeah.
or validated for that.
Mm.
And those were my signs. When I started to devolve into chaos or things just felt like it was all way too much. And those were my signs that, okay, I'm out of alignment here. Like we need a shift, we need a change. And I think I used to think that meant that I needed my children to change or I needed
Yeah.
something other than that. But doing all of this process and going through and I think that homeschooling is such a self-learning journey as well, because I noticed that so much of it was dependent on me and how
Yes.
I was coming to it and what my expectations were and how I was approaching it,
Mhm.
which can be overwhelming. But I think also it can be such a form of empowerment too, to know
Amen.
that I can take that control back and I can change the narrative. I don't have to be a hostage to that tension that was growing there, that I can actually come and change the narrative for that.
That's right, and it does take a lot of work at times. I was just chatting with someone right before us, and though it be a different context, she's more focused on the political atmosphere. But when we are unable to control something, it makes us feel like, "What do I do with this?" But also, the way that we're looking at everything influences how we experience it, and it directly tells us what our next step is going to be. If we tell ourselves, it shouldn't be like this, I'm resentful, I don't like this, then I will rail at it. I might fight, flight, freeze, fawn, but I'm going to try and I will allow all of my energy capacity to go toward that instead of actually making a practical, pragmatic step to doing something that you can control.
Absolutely. And putting all that energy towards that pushback is just creating that even more. You just have so much more to push back against. Whereas if you change your perspective, change your dynamic, you can go
Mhm.
around and whatever that thing was that was butting up against you doesn't seem that big of a deal anymore.
It's all on how you frame it, how you look at it. Having said that, I mean, our kids are there to teach us about ourselves. And as soon as you start speaking to that, then I think, oh, I know how I activated certain kids toward, we call it pushback here. Gordon Neufeld refers to it as a certain phrase that I can't think right now. Everyone knows this book, Gordon Neufeld, Hold On to Your Kids. But the kind of resistance we get from kids, counterwill, that's what it is. We experience that counterwill when we push them really hard on something. Some of the kids will just do what we ask them to do, and some of them will push back. And it's not fun, but it is a sign to us that there is something that needs to shift in how we're engaging them. It's useful for us because it teaches us about how we're showing up. I wish I could go back and be very aware of all the tiny little moments where I was actually enabling or creating an opportunity for counterwill. And I could step back and I could say with my empowered mom state that I love you and I'm saying that we need to do this. I will not react. I have to tell myself this. I will not react to the behavior right in front of me. I will just tell you this is what we need to do instead of incite that counterwill. But I don't have the opportunity to do that. I can't go back and write all those moments. I did learn how to do it over the course of time, though. And what I've learned is that the lessons that you learn along this homeschool mom journey, you aren't expecting, but they're there for you to learn what you need to learn right now. So you just accept what it is and keep moving.
Yeah. And I think that you had asked earlier too, like, how do you know when you're connecting or you're targeting your child? Or you know
Mm.
when you're meeting
Yeah.
them where they're at? And I think that counterwill or that pushback that you get, that resistance, is a point where you're not meeting the need. I know that when I encounter that, that is typically where I am putting the academics or the lesson or even my own version of like how I think that this should go and trying to exert my will over the relationship and really being able to see that perspective. And I think some of the tools that I have learned too is being able to see things in a different way and allowing your children to experience things in a way that's different from the way that you see or interpret things. And just giving that grace to be able to say and step back and say, I am very specific and I'm very certain in the way that I see this situation. And also, this is another human being here in front of me, and they are seeing this in a different way. And I want to take the time to acknowledge that perspective. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that, like you're saying, it doesn't mean that I'm always going to just give into it, but
Mhm.
being able to give them that sense of feeling like they're being seen, like their feelings are
Mhm.
being heard,
Yes.
that their opinion matters. And I think that when I am doing that, we will still have resistance. It's not that, oh,
Mhm.
all of a sudden everything's swimming and all of our
Nope.
days are golden and lovely. That is not what happens. But I think that what it is that we have that relationship set point back, that we have this baseline to work from where they can appreciate and know that when I am meeting them at certain ways that they don't have to push back so much because they know that I can take it and that I will take their thoughts into consideration, but
Mhm.
also in a way that's still maintains my guiding or leadership of the family. So it's not giving them this roller coaster where they're giving too much power, because I think often it can be taken to the permissive
Yes.
side. And then the children just don't feel control because they don't have any steadiness. So they know what to expect, but they also know that, okay, we are both working towards the same thing and we both want that relationship and that communication.
So necessary, especially when kids start transitioning into adolescence and they're individuating. And they don't give you a sign that says, hey, so I'm not little anymore. I'm growing up and I need you to honor my needs and desires. No, they do things like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or I don't want to do that. Or the stuff that you're like, just get in the car. Just do what I said. I told
Just
you.
do it.
Just come on, let's do this. Yes, I really have said those things. So it rolls off my tongue easily, but the instinct is to just declare, "No, you're pushing back on me, so I'll have to go a little stronger." And I totally get that and absolutely have done that and was raised in that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually work. And it doesn't work with any of us. When we, even as full grown adults, when someone tells us, "No, you can't do that," you're like, "Can I? No."
Right.
You ponder it at the very least. Or maybe I suppose you just follow. Maybe. I don't recommend that.
Maybe. And also, I think too, sometimes, like, yes, exactly. As an adult, if somebody tells me that I'm not going to do something, and I tend to have a resistant personality anyway. So if you're going to tell me that I can't do something, that is just going to trigger that desire to be like,
Yeah.
let's see about this.
We'll see. And also, we are in the I don't know, I didn't ask you this, but I speak a lot about this. We're in that perimenopausal phase. So there is a higher no BS meter going on.
Yeah.
There's so you're just like, you're gonna tell me what to do? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't think
that's
so.
just as the world needs it.
Yes. Well, and I think too, like, I don't want my children to be blatant rule followers. I want
Right.
them to question. I want them to think critically and develop their own ideas and be able to experiment and try things out. I don't want them to constantly, like, follow the rules. Would it be nice for me? Would it be way easier?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was
But
gonna
if I
say, except in our own homes, it would be more
Urban homes, please just do what I say. Question
but it
outside.
doesn't work like that. That's the thing. And I actually was surprised by that because instinctively, like you, I have this energy that's no, I want to do this. I want this lifestyle, this opportunity for my kids, not just for me, so that they can grow up and think independently and live purposeful lives on their own terms. And then without specific details, because that wouldn't be fair to my kids. But there are certain moments that I'm like, maybe not that, certain things. But it turns
Yep.
out that's not how it rolls. That's not how it works. And, anyways, if you want more influence with a teenager or a preteen, you ideally maintain your cool even when they're really pushing you. And you come at a place of, I know who I am and I know my role as your guide in this part of your life, hopefully the entire life, but I am here as your guide and I am still saying no, or I'm saying, okay, consider that. But you're holding the energy and also, just like you were sharing, listening to them and then helping them to walk toward the best thing for them. That's hard when you're not taught that though, because I don't know about you, I had 0 training in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is, and I think that especially for our generation, who were raised differently, and now we're trying to we have so much more information than our parents did about parenting, about how to do or how to communicate better, how to regulate our emotions. Like we're saying, like, I didn't even just stuff them down. That's what you do with your
Let
emotions
other
until they
people feel the
burst.
feelings. That was
Yes.
what we did. There are
Feeling.
certain people that feel feelings and it's not you.
Yes, but
Yeah.
trying to hold all of that and maintain. So learning as you go, which is such a metaphor for homeschooling, learning alongside while I'm teaching my children, like teaching them emotional regulation while I'm trying to learn how to do this
Learn it
myself.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be so hard. And I think that it gets passed off as, oh, this should be easier. I feel like this should be easier. And so I must be doing it
Hmm.
wrong. When in fact, it's just hard. And just because it's hard sometimes doesn't mean that it's not purposeful, doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong, doesn't mean that it's not worth it or that it's
Right.
always going to be that way. And knowing that there's going to be those ebbs and flows and just being able to embrace that and move through that difficulty and that resilience, like it's building resilience in me, it's building
Hmm.
resilience in my children, and being able to navigate that. But just knowing, because I think that there can be a tendency, and I don't know if you see something similar with your coaching clients, but there's two ends of the spectrum where there's the homeschool moms that are trying to show like, oh, we do it. We have the schedule. We do all the things. Everything is perfect. Like we're doing all the stuff and it's just going great. Or the ones that are just like hot mess express. We don't have any idea. It's all hard. It's all terrible. And I think that both are very valid, but they're not the full story. And knowing that
Hmm.
some days it's going to look like this and some days it's going to look just like chaos, and enjoying that part of the or saying that, right? Like, sometimes it is not enjoyable, but, like,
Yeah.
being able to appreciate the opportunity that we have and that flexibility and that ability to get to know our kids so well and be able to have that relationship too is such a blessing even during the hard
Mhm.
time.
Right, yes. And yeah, and I mean it now that my youngest is actually graduating this year, and I've got a kiddo that's getting married now. So it's
Oh, congrats.
it's a whole different world. It's very exciting. I quite enjoy him. He's a lovely soul. I wish I could have raised him, but then when he shares his story and he's a pretty risky kid, I'm like, "Or not." I'm glad I didn't raise him. I would have been scared, but I'm so glad to have him in our family. But yes, you were speaking about what I see myself in with various people that come to hang out with me and walk alongside, or I walk alongside. I do see all all methods. Everyone brings an eclectic version of some method or an approach or a routine. There's all sorts of different routines. Oftentimes I hear women come in to talk about, how do I make this happen? How do I get my kid motivated? Or how do I create a routine that really works? And then we discover that it's not actually about, that's not usually the most important part. Sometimes they really do want to understand how to time block or how to make the things that matter to them happen in their days. But what I typically see is it is about emotional regulation or about relational challenges that they're having, the tone in their home and how that's deeply influencing what's going on, or the narratives that they brought into homeschooling, possibly even brought into motherhood that have been with them since they were 8 years old. And the relational dynamics are all influenced by that. And of course, there's a relationship with education itself and how you value certain things or what you really value in it. But I see it as so much more than the specific routines or rhythms that people bring into conversation. They think they're starting there. And we do talk about that, but that's not the most important part as I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for myself and when I'm working with people as well, it is. You think that you go in and you're like, oh, I need more time. I need more
Mhm.
intention. I need
The
or
right curriculum.
discipline, motivation. Yes, I need the
Mhm.
perfect curriculum. But I think that's because that's easier to focus on
Yeah.
and that's easier to pinpoint. If I could
Mhm.
just find, and I spent years, when I started homeschooling, I was running a nonprofit organization and like doing all kinds of things. So my time felt very constrained. I felt like
Mhm.
I didn't have enough time. And I remember talking with a mentor at one time and, okay, I have all these things and like we have our 30 minutes or whatever. Just show me, like, how do I like create this perfect schedule? How do I get all of these things done? And they're just like, yeah, so you just need to create more space. And I was like,
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's easy to say. But
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
in and I like really pushed back at that and was like, that
Mhm.
is ridiculous. This is sure. Create more
This might
space.
be, yeah, make my calendar work for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. But what it really meant was looking back and saying, what are the things that I'm doing that aren't in alignment that are making me not be able to focus and prioritize on the things. So I'm not even seeing it. I was so
Right.
busy doing all the things that I wasn't even taking a step back to say, like, why am I
Yes,
doing this?
that's it. Why?
What is the
Yeah.
intention for it?
Mhm.
And once you do that and you get that, and that's uncomfortable to
Mhm.
be in that position of questioning and trying to
Everything that you're
figure out.
doing.
Yes.
Mhm.
And especially when we've been so far removed for so long. And I think that a lot of women go into motherhood and they kind of lose their sense of self, lose their
Mhm.
sense of purpose outside of motherhood. And
Yep.
especially if you're going into homeschooling, like
Mm,
that is like so much of your life. To
mm.
step back and get in touch with your own desires, to give yourself permission to actually prioritize yourself too, and realize that the repercussions of that in the whole family unit
Exactly.
were
Yes.
so big.
Yeah, you said so many things right there. That is a conversation I often have with women, but they don't identify it as losing their sense of self. They just feel burned out or exhausted or some version of, or I'm bored or I'm like done with what this entire homeschool thing is. But I don't really want to put them back in school. That's not what I really want. But they lose their sense of self. That was me, by the way. That's why I wrote my book.
Yeah.
And that energy, I would say to a homeschool mom that if they need a break, then take a break. Like, your goal is actually, in my perspective, is a happy mom is going to enable happier kids. And if you are miserable and you find yourself always losing your temper with your kids or hiding in the closet with a box of Oreos, like, again, then I get it. And I'm not criticizing in any way. We all have those moments. But if you are tired of that, then you need to do something different, no matter what that is. It might mean putting the kids back into school for a time. It might mean moving on to something entirely different because you're just at a different phase in your life. The biggest thing isn't the homeschooling. I see homeschooling as a path to autonomy. If we choose it, it's a path to a purposeful life. If we choose it, it can also be a very jail-like life if we choose it, all how we frame it, but it is a path to a purposeful life if we choose it. And you as a mom being happy, that really matters. That really matters. Not 100% because nobody is, but happy.
Happier. Yeah. And I think that what you said was so important too, is that you choose, you get to
Yeah.
choose. And I think so many of us feel this sense of dysautonomy, right? Like we don't
Mm.
have the ability it's this life that we created, but now we're stuck in it. And what you were saying, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you don't want to do the things, like you're waking up in the day just miserable, thinking about what you have going on or about how it's not going to go, especially when you have the kids home and you're doing all of these things with them, they are going to pick up on that energy. And it may be
Absolutely.
great that you want to teach all the Greek tragedies or whatever it is, and that's your important thing that you want to get. But they're
Mhm.
also noticing and taking in and being taught this is what life looks like. This is what being a mom looks like. This is what my wife is going to look like. This
Yeah.
is what life is.
Mhm.
And those lessons are going to stick much more profoundly in them than whatever that subject matter is that you're trying to dig deep on and really trying to make sure that they get because you don't want them to be behind.
Yeah. You are the most important curriculum.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
That's not a pressure till you should feel bad every
Mm.
time you lose your temper, or you should feel bad because you didn't know something at a certain phase of your motherhood that you do now. It's actually true.
Yeah. And I think too, like to that pressure, because I do think that people can hear that and they can feel that sense of pressure. Oh my gosh, like I have to do everything perfectly. If you were perfect, that would be an intense other pressure for your kids.
Exactly.
It would be something
Yeah.
that they were never able to attain. So you don't want to be perfect. I never want to be perfect for my kids. I want to mess up. I want them to see it. I want them to see me learning. I want them to see me growing. I want them to see me repairing and the
Mhm.
connection and how relationships work and
Yeah.
how choosing myself and maybe choosing things and then failing or whatever, like this is all part of life. And I want them to see all of that because I want them to have the full experience.
Yes.
So having that as a permission slip to be like, yeah, like I'm a growing, evolving human too. And I don't have all the answers. I'm not always going to handle everything well. And I'm not supposed to do everything. I think that one of the traps too is that so and so down the street is doing poetry tea time all the time. And these people over here are doing like all the history, they're doing memorization and these
Yeah.
people over here and thinking that you're supposed to do all of that too to get them well rounded, where
Yeah.
you go child led, you follow them, you give what you have in your area of expertise. I want my kids to be able to learn what they like and then learn how to learn about it. I don't need to teach them everything. I don't need to be an expert.
Thankfully, because I kid you not, I've got 2 kids doing calculus right now. There is no way. Yeah, we were talking about our identity, our awareness of losing our sense of self. I think it's like a slow burn. It's not a now you get a sign that just says, "Okay, alert, alert, you need to do something for yourself." But you can feel it in your body. Do you remember a time where you became aware of your own, like, identity challenge or realizing you're losing yourself?
Yeah, and I think that my story is a little bit differently. I went into motherhood very apprehensive about that. So I was
Mm,
constantly on guard. And so I made sure I know that I need a lot of space. I need a lot of alone time to maintain my energy. And I knew that going in. So I did take breaks. I did go see my
mm,
friend, did do all of the
beautiful.
things because I knew that I wasn't going to make it through otherwise.
Very just
And so I was very conscious of that. And even I think that there did become a time, and it was right around the pandemic, I think, where I was running stuff. The kids were getting a little bit older. I was starting to feel a little bit more pressure to really start to dig into curriculum, do all of these things. Um, and I did start to notice that I just wasn't enjoying the things that I normally enjoyed.
mm,
That I was really getting short with the people that mattered the most to me. I'd go into work, I'd go into my professional relationships, and I would have so much patience, so
mm,
much sweetness to that. I would just give my best space to that, and I would come home to the people that mattered most to me. And I was short and I was impatient and I was resentful and I could feel like in me, that's not how I wanted to show up. That was actually the reverse of what I wanted to be doing. And I realized that I wasn't doing any of the things that I knew that I needed to. Me, that I had lost sight of some of those things that maybe I might like to do. And I think that it doesn't look like, oh, I'm losing myself. Like I never thought, oh, I'm losing my
yeah,
sense of self, like
exactly.
you're saying. It was just these little things that were just like, who am I
Mhm,
outside of being a mom, of a wife, of a professional, of a like, who am I outside of all of these roles that I play? What does she want? Because I felt, honestly a little purposeless. Like, even though I was doing all of these things, I just felt, "Is this it?
yeah,
Is this is what I created? I wanted so much freedom, I wanted so much flexibility, I want all these things, and now I'm stuck."
right. Yes. In the last year, I started publicly releasing vignettes of my memoir.
Mhm.
And as I did that, as one always experiences as a writer, you gain a lot of self awareness. And I discovered for my own story the 12 things that were really significant, the things that I learned that helped me to come back to me, to return to the truest self, which I like to think of as my 8-year-old self, because she was unaware, carefree,
Mhm.
present in doing the things she was doing. And I notice that with women that I'm working with too. I often bring them back to their 8-year-old selves. But when you're speaking about that, then I'm just thinking the things that I've learned over the last year, we don't create space for that because we have stuff to do. And like you said, there's always something else that we could be doing, or you notice somebody else doing something that you're like, should I be doing that? I have to be doing that. But I heard you say earlier that you were challenged to identify what really matters and then create space around that. I call it margins, where you actually have energy or capacity, where you feel present to what you're doing in the moment. And I think our culture does not invite that. And in various subcultures, it invites it less. But we are not invited to living a spacious life. I think that's what we need to go for. It's not just happy, which is obviously not static, but it is actually about being present to what we're doing. And if we're present, we feel more at peace. We enjoy the entire thing more. And if we don't enjoy it, then we should ask ourselves why we're doing it. But if we are creating more margins and really asking what really matters, and I can't do everything, then we release some of that pressure, I think.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the things that I was able to work through and something that I use a lot too is returning to those like, how do I want to feel? What are those
Yeah.
core desired
Yeah.
feelings? Because
Mhm.
those are different for everyone. The feelings that resonate for me aren't necessarily going to resonate for you. But if
Right.
I know that this is how I want to feel. So I want
Mhm.
to feel energetic. I want to feel alive.
Mhm.
I want to feel connected. I want to feel ease. I want to
Mhm.
feel that sense of freedom. Like those are all things that are very important to me.
Yeah.
So I know that for me, going after like a tough curricula or like trying to do a very rigid schedule is not going to work. I
Mhm.
know that when I'm looking at the things that I want to implement or that I do, that honestly, I can have an older car because I like going on vacation. So,
Mm.
like, these are the trade offs, but then
Yeah.
I'm not constantly judging myself and everything that I'm doing against that other thing because I know what's important for me. And I think
Right.
that that is
Yeah.
so freeing because then you're like, oh, so and so down the street is doing all of this stuff. And now I feel like I have to do that or I have to keep up with them or I have to re landscape my yard because everybody on the block is doing that.
Yeah.
That's not important for me right now. My kids are little. We're digging in the dirt. That's what's important for us. And that
Yeah.
just gives you so much more of a sense of that confidence in yourself, ability to get away from that noise and that comparison that I think that so often we feel like we need to be doing it all as women. We need to be doing
Mhm.
it all. We need to
Yeah.
be making it look easy and we need to like not complain or not anything about it. Like just keep going. And I think
Yes.
that functioning is what leads us to the burnout. So if we're just able to say, no, you know what? I'm not able to do that right now because that's not part of my priorities. And being able to
Mhm.
do that's where I was able to create the spaces. Yeah, you know what? This is really important. This is really great. I think that cause over there is wonderful. I don't have the time. That's not where I'm
Mhm.
prioritizing my time right now.
Yeah.
And being able to say no and giving
Mhm.
myself that permission, so huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the work that I do is the boundaries and the relationship challenges that we have. Oftentimes it's with kids when people discuss that, but I do notice that our attachment relationships, like our parents or our partner, if we're partnered, are the most important relationships because the way we show up in them and how connected we feel with them is directly influencing the tone of our home and it's influencing how we're showing up with our kids.
Yeah.
And all of those things, all of these elements, I think are significant parts of a happy homeschool mom life and really being able to do all the things that really matter to us. But I heard you share about feelings and certainly how you feel really matters. And of course, as coaches, the values angle, getting clear on what actually you value and versus what someone else might value. And you might aspire to wanting the thing that they value, but you don't really care that much. So then maybe asking yourself, what do you actually value? And is it actually fitting in your life? Are you making time for those things? And are you deleting the things that are extra?
Yeah. And for that season, like the other thing is that these can change. When I had
Yes,
toddlers at home,
absolutely.
I didn't have
Hmm.
the ability to be able to put the time into things that I might want for
Hmm.
me personally,
Yep.
because that was the season that I was in. Now that my kids
Hmm.
are a little bit older, like I can just go
Hmm.
off and do
Yep.
something, they're fine. So noticing it and adjusting your expectations based on the season and knowing that doesn't have to be static while allowing opportunities for really being able to return to what's important and purposely and intentionally bringing that in. And I think that ability, and like you were saying, like homeschooling is just a self learning journey as well, but
Hmm.
noticing how my 20-year-old self had dreams and desires and things that she wanted to do that are no longer aligned with who I am now. And if I continue to
Right.
chase that
Yeah.
version and this version,
Yeah.
I'm just going to
Hmm.
feel like I'm never enough or I can't keep up. But knowing and checking in and doing that regularly and
Hmm.
being able to experiment and try something out and be like, yeah, I think that this actually might be. And then, oh, you know what? Actually, no, that isn't important to me. I have decided that's not. And one of the things that we do, you talk about the expectations and especially around our kids, like our kids do like one, maybe two activities that are regular, like sporting or whatever for the
Hmm.
season. We're a
Hmm.
homeschool family. Like I own my own business. I can go. I technically have the time and I could create in my schedule to drive them around all the time. That would not feel good in my life. That does not
Hmm.
fulfill me and my sort of the purpose and where I want to spend my time. So this is the capacity that I'm holding. And I'm not adding on all of these things just because they might be interested or because I think that they should be doing
Hmm.
unexposed to all of these things. And that can
Yeah.
grow and change as well.
Yeah, no, you could spend endless money and use endless time if
Yeah.
you tried to do that. And I am somebody who has a story where I was really driving a lot until I finally decided that this is just too much. So what I thought would curtail it was something I haven't heard people say, but is getting them to earn money toward their extracurricular activities and then to take responsibility for it. But I thought that was a fabulous idea. I'm like, "Okay, now we're gonna reduce how many they're going
Yes.
into." They got part-time jobs.
Backfired. Yeah.
Yes.
Then you're driving them to their job and their activities.
Yes. When the first child actually starts driving, that is a lot of relief. My youngest started driving, or he's been driving for a few years, but he got his official driver's license in the last few months, and that is next level freedom. That's a whole different world. But yeah, that did backfire on me. It did teach them what they cared about, though.
And I think too, like, even when I was doing it, I'd be like, go there and I'd take my kid to practice, and it was an hour and a half or 2 hour practice or whatever. And I'd see all of these parents just sitting in their car or sitting on the sideline, just watching their kids. And I was like, this is not the life for me. No, if I have to be here, I'm going to go walk my lap so I can get my steps in, or I'm going to bring some things that I can work on while I'm doing it because I wanted to still be able to, or I'm going to drop them off or have them take themselves there and come back home. Like, I don't need to sit there and just visually watch my kids practice every day. That I will come to their games. I will watch them then. Like that is where my role is for that. I'm the cheerleader then. I'm not sitting there just looking and critiquing everything that they're doing. I don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And that's not good for a relationship anyway. But finding those pockets, because I think so often we're like, oh, I don't have time, I don't have whatever. But sometimes there is opportunities that you might be just in that, like, I'm just doing what everybody's doing because this is what we're doing. This is what we do.
Mhm.
We just
Yeah.
come here, we sit on the bleachers, and we're here. And yeah, and if that's great for you, like, there are parents that really do want to be involved with that, and there is no judgment here. Like, absolutely do your thing.
We're all
Um,
different. Yep.
just not for me.
So that was one of the expectations that you let go of then,
Yeah.
that notion of always being present to all of those things or driving them to more than one activity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that just finding those little opportunities to be able to say, you know what, this isn't aligned. And again, try
Mhm.
it out as an experiment. Test it out. See if it works, if it relieves any of that extra stress. And if not, then maybe there's a different opportunity for it.
So what does presence look like for you in your life now? So you have a business, you're homeschooling, and what does you being present really look like compared to before?
Yeah. Okay. So I will start off by saying when I let go of the job and just started working on my business, like I was working on the business and the job and homeschooling. And to that thought of, okay, if I just had more time, then everything would get done. So I let go of the job and thought everything was going to be fine and easy. And honestly, it was not because other
Mhm.
things will just fill your time then. Now I'm home more. Now I can do more things around the house.
Dishes.
Yes, exactly. So honestly, having too much freedom for me, I've realized is it's almost as bad as having too much of a packed schedule because there's always time. I can always do that thing that I was intending to do later. School, which typically would take an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, we do year round, that I would have to be physically with them, started to take 3 or 4 hours because now we are just not focused the whole time and we have the space. And I noticed that I was still pushing things on. So leaning back and looking at and noticing what I need for me. And so that's certain things that do need to have a regular rhythm and that changes seasonally, but have a regular rhythm. I have adapted and worked on how we do our schooling. So we used to do our schooling expectations every day. Now I set their schooling expectations for the week. And
Mhm.
then we have set aside time. Typically in the earlier part of the week, we set more aside. And then as the week, because they like to get their stuff done. My kids are they just want to get it done so they can feel free for the rest of the week. So we do that. And I set aside a little bit more time at the beginning of the week. And then we don't have to worry about checking in every single day because I felt like I was still trying to do all of the things in one day and having more
Yeah.
themed days. I have afternoons where I typically will meet with clients or I'll do these types of things. I have the mornings where I typically won't schedule a lot of stuff. And then about once or twice a week, I do an errand I just have to do whatever in the afternoon. If we have appointments, if we have things that I have to run. So having that as like my buckets of time or my ideal week. And then I love to be able to be spontaneous. So when things come up or things like, I know and I have a feeling of what might have to get shifted around and what might have to move. But that has really been able to be that bridge between like very rigid
Yeah.
and so much space where everything was just filling in wherever.
That's interesting because this is a little bit of a different take on that. But I went from the 3rd or 4th year, for 3 or 4 years, I was doing a very formal private school at home. And so with Sunlight curriculum and the well-trained mind, like I just had all of it. And then by 3 or 4 years, I burned out, of course. And then I went full unschooling for 6 months and realized that really did serve my ADHD kiddo, who I didn't know was ADHD at the time. It did really serve her, but everybody else was bored. And it was too much and there wasn't any structure. And so then we shifted into a more formal-ish approach, but that's more formal than unschooling, but not formal enough for formal people to say it's formal.
Well,
What is
I think we started unschooling. I have a deep love for unschooling and the ability to be child led. And I think that to that same point, like it's so open ended that sometimes for me, if I wasn't over them, involved with their stuff and like backtracking to see what they were learning,
Yeah,
um, it was feeling like maybe we weren't doing enough schooling things. And then we have some neurodivergence that came up. And so having to get specific curriculum to address some of that and bringing
yeah,
some of that in. So we do have some curriculum that we use, and then we do a lot of unit studies. So, okay, what do you want to learn about now? What do you want to do? And some of this was more like science. We're going to do the rocks and the geology, and we're going to bring all the stuff in, and we're going to go get all the stuff from the library, or we're going to learn about the oceans, and we're going to go out to the coast, and we're going to actually go and play in the tide pools, and we're going to learn about all this stuff. And taking some of that, which I love
yeah,
now that they're getting a little bit older, to again finding that balance, because now if they could, every unit study would be about like Minecraft or football
yeah,
or but being able to tailor into those interests still and try to then utilize that where it's okay, yeah, great. You want to do this horse study, you want to learn about having a horse, great. Let's work on writing while we're doing it, and you can research and tell
exactly.
me all about it. And doing that kind of approach is where we've hit this middle ground where we have some curriculum
Absolutely.
stuff and then some of the other.
Yeah, I don't speak to a specific method or approach here on the podcast
Yeah.
because I don't think there is one right way.
Yep.
I legit don't think so. But I do think there are ways to make you burn out. There are ways for you to feel miserable or to make your child miserable. And so for me, it's what do you want to use? And okay, let's make that work until you either decide that this is definitely not working or great, I made my own eclectic version of my specific family style. And that's exactly where you want to be. When
Well,
you start feeling pressure creeping back in, what is your go-to strategy to address it?
so I will go in cycles, right? Where I'm like, "Yes, this is great," whatever, and then usually once or twice a year, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, we need to bring it in again," and I'll start to feel
Mhm.
that pressure, and what I typically will do is give myself the chance to have the exercise. So I'll have the exercise of, "All right, what does this look like?" Plan out, "What do I wanna do?" Go back and review what my goals and stuff are, see what that would look like, and typically what happens is that when I go back to what my goals are for us and for my kids and their education and for our lives, that I'll typically find that middle point again where,
Yeah.
I think that it's typical at the start of the school year. Again, we school year
Okay.
round, but still feel that. And then typically about midway through where I'm like, okay, I had an idea of what we wanted to do and now we're going off track, or
Mhm.
we're not really hitting all those things that I want to. So I think giving myself the ability to look at it and then do that check in of, okay, so what is important here? What's
Okay.
actually important for our goals? What can
Mhm.
I let go of? And then what do I maybe need to bring in? Because maybe we have gotten a little lax in some of those areas. And maybe I do need to bring in more of that structure and just taking the temperature of the household, right? When things start to get really chaotic in the household or there's emotional meltdowns all the time or whatever, okay, we need to regroup. We need to get back on track and just noticing those temperature changes too.
Yeah, a nice way to put that. I often found October was a month that I started feeling, okay, you know what? I thought this was a great idea. We usually started, okay, to be fair, sometimes we started the formal stuff mid-October because I remember one year we were in Italy. But anyways, often it was mid-September. So that's only a month. That's a month where I'm like, "Huh, looks like what I expected to do is wildly unrealistic again." And then by October, I'm like, okay, we need to change this. But then somewhere around this season, January, February, the gray days, it just feels everybody's a little bit bored. That's when I would feel it again too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think to your point earlier when you were talking about you don't specify a certain curriculum or whatever because there isn't, I think that if there was a certain curriculum or if there was the perfect program, that would be it. There are so many options because we all think differently, we
Mhm.
respond to things differently, we interact differently. And so for some people, and I have talked to where like they'll ask me, like, oh, what did you do for it? I'm like, oh yeah, we just made units and we just did this stuff that I would grab. And they're like, that sounds terrible. That sounds like so much work and pressure. And I was like, oh, that felt easier to me than following this. But for some
Felt
people,
easier for me too.
yeah, some people having that routine though, and just knowing this is what I chose. I'm doing this curriculum. All I have to do is open the next day and just
Mhm.
follow the thing.
Yeah,
Like
I did
that
that too.
can feel
Mhm.
better.
Yeah, it is whatever you wanna do. And I mean, that whole discussion of, "But what if we miss something?" You're gonna miss something because
Absolutely.
God knows everything, possibly AI knows everything. No, no, wait. But we don't know everything, and everyone has gaps. Everyone. And so ultimately, you can try to teach a child calculus when they're 3. Maybe you're gonna find a child that is definitely engaged, but most kids won't. And so why are you trying to force something on a child that they really are not absorbing? If they're not gonna absorb it, if it means nothing to them, they have no there's no purpose behind it, then they're not going to keep it layered in their mind. And that goes for an 11-year-old. I had an 11-year-old kiddo who I could not get her to sit down to read something on history, but she loved her Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. And I knew because I like Shirley Bateson, that's twaddle. We can't
Yes.
read that, but
Yep.
I still bought it every Christmas. And but she loved it, and so then I would go with that, and then all of a sudden she came home one day and said, "Mom, I need a history textbook." And I said, "Really?"
Oh,
And now she's studying cultural anthropology, like presently, even possibly right now, she's studying a class of cultural anthropology and a variety of other things.
in
So
spite of the twaddle, right? Let's let go of all of the labels.
yes, yes, and yeah, no, I get it, and also that's what kept her reading. But she changes. That's really what my point was, is that they actually grow up and they start taking an interest in things that you weren't expecting.
And trusting your kids, right?
Mhm,
Because there may be kids that, sure, they might be doing the calculus or the reading or whatever at 3
mhm.
because that's how their brain works. That's what they're interested in. That's what's really going to light them up. And some kids may never be interested in that. And that might be
Like
because
me.
they are, right, same.
Yes.
They might be more into literature or they're going to be a
Mhm,
writer or they're going to be like looking in and trusting our kids, I think also
mhm.
instills that confidence in them that
Exactly.
they feel like, oh, like they're trusting that I am going to learn and I'm going to adapt at a rate that is good. And so I can trust myself when maybe I'm leaning into this thing and I don't know why, but we don't know what the next whatever years are going to look like. You bring up AI, but that's going to change all of the employment. That's going to change how everything is done. And so for us to sit there and say, oh, you need to do these things because that's the only way you're going to be a successful adult, they're going to be growing up in a whole different era. So having
Yeah.
them be able to learn how to adapt, how to be flexible, how to learn things, how to take their interests and turn them
Mhm.
into something, there's so much opportunity now.
So much.
And just
Mhm.
giving your kids that ability to like, yeah, I can be interested in this and that's fine. And I'm going to grow and I'm going to change. And it's not always going to be Diary of a Wimpy Kid that I'm reading.
Not. Yeah. She is now reading that cultural anthropology textbook, but she's also about to take a French class and a political science class. And yesterday she started acting classes. She actually has told me, "Mom, I'm homeschooling myself." She's 20 now.
Right.
And she's really intentional about the classes that she takes. So she's not doing it in a traditional program, although I have kids that did and presently are doing traditional college programs too. But I think ultimately the goal is, are you living a meaningful life? Because you got about 84 years if you're female on this continent. And so if you are so lucky to actually fulfill that, then what do you want to do with it? That's where I come from in the discussion on education.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is, again, such a point to go back to let go of all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
What is going to provide meaning for them and what is going to provide them to be able to feel that sense of purpose. I think that
Right.
so many of us were taught just go to the next thing, like high
That's what
achieving,
everyone does.
this
Yeah.
what it is, and you're going on and you're gonna study these things and you're gonna go to college and you're gonna do whatever. And like to what ends, it wasn't ever necessarily clear. Or if it was some external sense of validation of I'm gonna get a high paying job and I'm gonna work my way up and I'm gonna But is that at the expense of me feeling passionate about what I'm doing? Maybe, maybe
Exactly.
not. Is it going to
Yeah.
be at the expense of me feeling connected and having time with my family? Maybe not. So, like, the things that are important from an external standpoint in education, in life, and all of these things aren't necessarily going to be what's important for you.
And they might be, like,
Yeah.
coincidentally, my husband is a physician, and my daughter one of my daughters is doing a science program, and her intention is to go in that direction as well. And she has been well-versed in how dad did it all and how he focused in it and how she doesn't want to focus in it, and how she also wants to have a family and do things that obviously he didn't have the same responsibilities there. You can choose to do things differently too. As long as you're moving toward that purposeful life.
But
That's the beautiful
having that ability to know that ahead of time and going into it, having
exactly.
that is so much more empowering than just doing the next thing and just doing whatever you think you're supposed to. Because even in
It's
that position, it could be that the position is the same, that she's a physician in either way. And one of them,
mhm,
she is feeling like she's able to have a life. She's
mhm,
feeling that sense of like pride and excitement and
mhm.
purpose in it. And the other way could be that like I checked all the boxes and now I'm doing all the hours and I'm doing whatever, but I'm
Yes,
feeling disconnected from it. And I'm not
exactly.
having that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. This homeschool thing I see as way bigger than the day-to-day, the routine, the curriculum, the all the things that we typically talk about. It's about enabling real autonomy for your kids and also you, coincidentally, because just like you said, it's all a big growth journey, and it is if you so choose it. And it's a growth journey for you. You get to move into, hey, what do I want? Who am I? And then you get to do that for your kids. Like, what better thing is there than that for a family?
Absolutely.
I'm curious what advice you would give to a mom who feels guilty about not doing enough in her homeschool.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see is that if you are feeling a sense of guilt, if you are feeling like you're not doing enough, if you're having that mom guilt, you are already doing so much more than you think. The people that are not as engaged are not going to be feeling the guilt. So the fact that you feel that already shows like how invested you are in your kids. And I would also say that guilt is not doing anything for
Mhm,
you in terms of improving your relationship, in terms of
mm,
being a better mom. Like none of that is. And it's also, again, this can be considered pressure, but I think that it's empowering is that by showing up and giving, when I give time to myself, when I let go of the mom guilt, when I put that aside and just say, you know what, I need to be able to also, I'm a person here in this relationship. I have needs, I have desires, and I am a part of it. I'm important enough to
mhm.
like claim that for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any of that on my kids. I'm no
Mhm.
longer looking to them to create my happiness. I am no
Yes.
longer looking to them to create my mood stabilization or my sense of purpose. I'm owning all that. And that
Mhm,
in itself releases them of any of it. It gives so much more of a sense of balance and like harmony to the household if I'm taking responsibility for that. And they also get to then be like, oh, you know what? If I'm having a bad day, that's on me. Like having that and showing up that way. So I think looking at it in terms of, am I ever gonna ease the mom guilt? No. It's always gonna be there, but how can
yeah,
I look at it and say, like, "How is this serving me?" Because sometimes it can be an indicator of maybe I need to tune in more, maybe I need to let go of some things, and then let go of the rest of just the
mhm.
shame and the buildup that we have because we wanna be compassionate to ourselves in order to be compassionate to others and to
Yes.
teach that
Mhm.
compassion.
Yeah, yeah, so if you were to look back at your most pressured point in your homeschool journey, what do you wish you could have told yourself at that time?
Yeah, I think that just that's gonna be okay.
Mm,
That it's gonna work out, that it's gonna be as hard as you make it. I feel like I was internalizing and making it be this bigger thing. And also, you're not homeschooling in a day. You're not
mhm,
homeschooling in a year. This is a journey that's gonna take at least the 18 years. I know it's not homeschooling the whole time, but at least the 18 years. And I want to create those lifelong learners. And so I don't need to hit everything every time. And I don't need to hit everything in a day or a week or a month or even that school year. There is plenty of time to be able to hit all of the things that I want to, and everything that I thought I needed to do was usually something that came from external. So
Yeah.
again, like looking back and saying what is actually important and what are the things that
Mhm.
I actually want, because I want to teach them to learn. I don't want them to teach them a bunch of facts so that they're just an information
Mhm.
storage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I do wish that I could have looked honestly at myself and said, "Who are you really, and what do you actually need?" And the answer was, "I have no clue." And still, I listened to the Brené Brown TEDx talk. I had no clue, and it was not taught to even think like that, let alone do like self-awareness work or self-compassion work. But at the moment, I wish I could go back to that moment and say, "Listen, it is completely predictable that you would be feeling burned out right now, that you'd be losing your temper more than you thought you would because you thought this was the perfect life, the charmed life, but it's completely predictable that you're in the place that you're in right now. You cannot do all these things. It is not possible if you are
Yeah.
going to show up with any joy or presence. It's not possible. So you're going to have to create margins, get clear on what actually matters. And if you find yourself not feeling present in it, that's your sign that you need to change something or pull something back."
Absolutely.
So, as a last thought, I would love to hear what offering or what advice you'd share with moms as their possible 1% pivot, from something that they could grasp onto and use in order to address perhaps their feeling of overwhelmed. If you have something to share?
Yeah. I think that one of my favorite things, I think it's something that is easily considered and doesn't take a whole lot of like space or time to be able
Mhm.
to do, is when you're looking at something and if it's feeling particularly heavy, if it's feeling
Mm,
particularly hard, is to look at it and think like, how can I let this be easy? And
mhm,
looking at where there might be opportunities to allow something to happen or to give that more space instead
mhm.
of trying to force and push through.
Yeah.
If you're looking at something for homeschooling and the curriculum's really heavy or whatever, like, how could I let this be easy? And
Mhm,
maybe that's backing off, or maybe that's breaking the lesson into several days instead of trying to push it through. Then maybe it's doing it at a different time or in a
mhm.
different way, change the location, go outside, do something like, how can I take this thing that I'm trying to do and outside of homeschool, like just in your general life, like how can I let this be easy?
Yeah.
Breakfast seems so hard. What mindset am I coming into with this that I feel like I have to make a 4-course meal for this? Or like, how can I just give myself a little bit more grace and allow more ease to come in? You don't
Yeah.
have to force it, you don't have to make it easy, but how can you let it be a little easier?
I love that question, Christina. That is so good. How can I make this easier? Or how can I allow the easy to come in? That's so good, so quotable. I might quote
Yeah.
you. Where can people find you on your
Yeah.
podcast or online?
Yeah, so I have a podcast, it's Clear and on Purpose, and I go over mindset tips, I go over perspective shifts, lessons that I've learned,
Yeah.
and have conversations like this. We'll be sharing this
Mhm.
on the podcast too, I'm very excited about. And if they want more information about me, about the work that I do, they can go to my website. It's ChristinaSlaback.com. I'll send it to you. You can put it in the show notes.
Yes.
They can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under the same.
It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I knew for sure that we should definitely meet, and I'm even though I wish that you didn't have a moment of overwhelm or had an experience of overwhelm, I am delighted that you've experienced it so that we could connect here over the Zoom waves and really be able to support other people. So thank you for being here.